Hey everybody, I'm sure you've all by now seen the news over at Xbox, and it's hard to come to any other conclusion other than Xbox is cooked at this point. I mean, let's be completely honest here. They were on shaky ground for the last, God, what, 4 years, 3 years? Especially since the Activision Blizzard buyout, as corporate Microsoft, led by Satya, has completely undercut anything Phil Spencer was trying to do to build the brand back up from the Xbox One era. And let's get into it a little because, you know, in a way, this is almost a follow up to my prior video on this, kind of stability of Xbox, where I was talking about whether or not I'm even looking at buying into the next Xbox or just going with the Steam machine. And this kind of solidifies even more that position that, I'm probably looking more at Steam Machine and Steam Deck as to where to go with my next console purchase and my next handheld purchase. Because at this point, I just don't see a future in the Xbox brand. In one day, they completely upended the leadership at Xbox. Phil Spencer retiring, and I practically use retiring in quotes here because as somebody who's worked in corporate America for the better part of the last 20 years of my life, I know voluntary retirement when I see one. This reads very much as, so would you like to retire now? Because of all the other moves with it. If Phil was retiring on his own, if a year ago Phil had been like, yeah, I'm stepping down, I'm retiring, I'm done. I've done what I came to do, I've teed it up, Sarah's taken over, I'm good. But the fact that Sarah's pushed out, Matt's being moved over to AI, and the person who was running the AI is now being moved over to Xbox, that to me does not scream confidence. Because as with any of these moves, they're all saying the right things. Phil's saying a lot of nice stuff on the way out. Sarah's saying a bunch of nice stuff on the way out. Matt's saying a bunch of nice stuff on the way out. The new CEO of Microsoft Gaming, Asha Sharma, she's saying all the, quote unquote right things, oh, we're going to focus on Xbox, the console experience, that's core to Microsoft Gaming, and we need to, really step up for the customers, and we're not going to load down the marketplace with a bunch of AI slop, the marketplace is already full of AI slop. None of these marketplaces, I mean, Steam does a little better than the other ones, but that slop is still there. There's still plenty of slop on Steam. They're just a little better at kind of setting you up and teeing you up to kind of filter that stuff out when you open up Steam, so you're not just bombarded with it the way you are on these console marketplaces where you go and look at the new releases and it's just slop for the first few rows until you finally get an indie game or a mainstream game that's actually worth a damn. But it's all niceties because they did this without anything concrete to show that these words have any meaning. This is the kind of shakeup, this level of shakeup should have been tied into the reveal of the next Xbox or the first party handheld, preferably both, if you're still even going there with the handheld. But let's just say that they aren't. This should have at least, at minimum, been tied to the official reveal of the next Xbox. Even if it is a year, even if it is 2 years down the road. This type of thing should have been tied to something concrete that fans can rally behind, that fans can go, oh, this is what you're talking about when you're saying all this flowery language about what the console means and what, us customers who've been supporting Xbox for 25 years, like, this is what you're talking about. This device that you're showing me right here, right now, is what you're talking about. You're showing me these tech demos. You're showing me the power behind it. You're explaining to me how backwards compatibility is going to work on it and how it's going to even expand and there's going to be even more stuff you can play on it. You're showing me the interface in its, infancy. Look, here's how you're going to be able to toggle over to Steam and you're going to be able to toggle over to Good Old Games. And this is how it's going to work on your native, brand new, Xbox Magnus. This is how it's going to look. This is how it's going to work. Hey, here's the new controller we're working on. It's got, Hall effect and yada, 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 all those wonderful things. That is what what they needed to do here. Because as of now, all this stuff in these memos and all this stuff in the press releases and everything, it's all just flowery corporate smoke being blown up our collective butts. Because Microsoft does not have the cash anymore to just throw out flowery language and have those of us who've been supporting the brand for 25 years just rubber stamp it and go, yeah, boss. That just ain't happening. These consoles are way too damn expensive. Your ecosystems are getting more and more expensive. So we now are shoppers. We now are looking for wherever the best value is going to be. Deeper cut sales. Game Pass is great, and I love Game Pass, and it is a great deal. But at the end of the day, if I don't have confidence in the console part, I can still do technically Game Pass on my PC. I'm sure there'll be a workaround, if not a native app, there'll at least be a workaround to be able to do Game Pass on the Steam Deck and the Steam machine when it comes out. And, people already have it running on the Steam Deck. They already have workarounds for that, whether it's browser or what have you. And especially since they're working at making it so you can stream your entire library from the cloud, including all of your purchase games going all the way back. Your proposition on trying to get me to drop upwards of $1,000 plus probably on your next console right now ain't there. You're not showing me enough. You're saying a lot of flowery language that you guys have proven time and again. And, I don't blame necessarily Phil Spencer for this. Like I said, I have been in corporate America now for the better part of 20 years. And if there is one thing that I've learned over that time is you don't want corporate eyes on you. And Microsoft was in that sweet spot for a while where corporate just kept handing them money and they could kind of do whatever they wanted until they bought Activision Blizzard, because that's where the dollar amount went from like here, where it's like, okay, you're not going to be scrutinized, to all the way up here past, like the bar is here for where like corporate eyes are going to start really like side-eyeing you and really, getting out the magnifying glass. They went like way up here. Like they went off the chart with that Activision Blizzard buyout. And that's when Satya and Microsoft Corporate started scrutinizing Xbox, what they're doing, what they're spending money on. When are we going to get a return on this investment of this money that we're buying? And then, of course, they got hauled into court, which then put even more corporate eyes on them. So they went from like not being scrutinized at all to having every level of corporate scrutiny on them. And every time Phil would try and like, we're doing this so we can bring exclusives to Game Pass and we're going to really like strengthen the brand with all these, hot exclusive games from Activision Blizzard and da-da-da-da-da. And then what happened? Undercut at every turn. And everybody pretty much knows that these were Satya Nadella calls. It was a Satya Nadella call to put the exclusives out of there, because he would come right out and say, like, I hate exclusives. Exclusivity is stupid. And so we know that came from him. That came top down. And the thing about top-down decisions in corporate America, you can try and buttress against that, and you can try and argue against that, but ultimately, once the corporate guys who, are in the room with all the big money shareholders, once those guys start telling you this is how it's going to go, that's how it's going to go. You know, I told a buddy of mine once when things were getting shaky at a past job and when I was in retail, and he was like, no, 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 I'm on this side of it and they'll always need me. And I'm like, dude, if the head honcho wants to buy a boat or keep your job, he's going to buy a boat. And that's kind of how it is right now with Microsoft. Like, whatever they say goes. If they want this, that's what they're going to get. And you can argue with your experience in gaming and whatnot, but those corporate guys, they don't care. They care about pumping that stock price. That's become their whole thing. Half these companies don't even make companies off of us, the customer, anymore. They make it off of selling to other companies. It's like a big corporate shell game. So they don't really even care about us to an extent. But, this is all flowery language with nothing behind it. That's great that you're going to focus on the console experience. That's great. We've been hearing that. Show me. Show me what the new Xbox is. Show me what your new controllers you're working on are. Show me these things. Because doing a major shakeup like this and then turning around and not showing me a damn thing to back these words up does not fill me with confidence. And I've been playing on the Xbox for pretty much the entire existence of the product. I was a year or two in before I got my original Xbox. But I've been gaming on it ever since. Has been generally, outside of Xbox One, my primary first of it every generation has been an Xbox. Xbox One was the only one where I waited. And that was because of the backwards compatibility thing. I didn't want to get rid of my 360 and lose all of those games. But once they were like, okay, we're bringing up, 90, 70% or 50% or whatever over right away, then it was like, okay, now I feel a little more confident jumping back into the Xbox ecosystem. But they never were able to make up that ground. They were never able to win those people back. And that's the thing. Like, all this flowery language, you still ain't won back those people. The people who left for PC and PlayStation when you dropped the ball on the Xbox One, you still haven't won back the people Don Matrick lost. There's still a lot of those people who are so burned by you guys that they still haven't come back. And now you're hemorrhaging more confidence over the last couple years. And you're doing these big shakeups with people who the community has generally loved. Sarah Bond was... I don't think anybody really disliked her, but they didn't really know her. She wasn't out there the same way that Phil was. You look at the hits that the Xbox community has taken over the years. And this does get into the, kind of the, importance of having these people. You look at kind of the way that Microsoft or Nintendo has kind of struggled since losing Reggie. Like, Reggie was a big part of keeping people kind of in the Nintendo camp. And when he left, they lost a little something there. But they have the benefit of being kind of the Disney of gaming. They've got the Mickey Mouse with Mario. They've got the Mickey Mouse. So there's always going to be a cadre of people who are locked in because of those core Nintendo IPs. Xbox doesn't really have that. They have Master Chief. What else? They've never managed to build, Banjo-Kazooie, Battletoads, Conker when they bought Rare. They never were able to build off of those. Bethesda. they've never really been able to capture that. A little bit with Doomguy, but not much. Not enough. But they've never really been able to really fully capitalize in any major way. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that Bethesda takes so damn long now to make their games. You got 2 seasons into Fallout, and there's no Fallout 5. You don't even have remasters of 3 or New Vegas ready to go. So they're dropping the ball in a way to build up, kind of brand loyalty. But they keep shooting themselves in the foot at every turn with these business decisions they're making. And like I said, they're not even showing us. Like, this announcement should have been tied to reveals, showing concrete proof of what the future for this brand is. Because like I said, you can have all the flowery corporate language you want. As customers, we see right through that. We're looking at these statements and we're like, this is all bull. You're not showing us anything. And over the last few years, your word means nothing. Because you keep telling us things and then doing the exact opposite. So when you're telling me you're not going to flood the marketplace with first-party AI slop games, you know what that tells me? You're definitely putting out AI slop games. When you're telling me that your focus is on the console, that tells me odds are we're probably never going to see the Magnus. You're trying to stop hemorrhaging from popular people in the Xbox community now leaving the brand. And your AI slop CEO, who's in charge of your AI slop department, now coming in and leading the gaming department that runs Xbox. That's what this language tells me. So, I think they're cooked, honestly. And that pains me because I've been gaming on this thing for better part of 25 years, probably closer, probably 24, 23, because like I said, I was a year or two into the life cycle before I got my Xbox, but, at least 24 years, and, like, I have no confidence in them. They aren't showing me enough to have confidence in them. I don't buy flowery language. Especially from corporations. Never trust corporations. They will lie to get any penny out of you. Like, don't trust corporations. Are you kidding me? We already have to have enough trust in them to sell us products that aren't going to kill us. You know what I mean? Like, they aren't going to catch fire. They aren't going to poison you if you take a bite out of that, piece of bread that, isn't chock full of, like, metal that's going to shred your mouth. Like, we already have to place enough trust in these people in our day-to-day of just even having to exist and buy their products. That you're just throwing a bunch of flowery language in there to keep me on some kind of proverbial, Xbox camp. Like, nah, man, that ain't how that works. Especially when you're going to be asking me to spend probably over $1,000 for your next console, and you can't even be transparent in its development process. This thing was supposed to come out next year, and we haven't seen it. We haven't seen peep. We haven't even seen, like, ooh, this is what we're working on. This is the console, We haven't even seen it. We've been told a bunch of flowery language. And Xbox has proven time and again, since the Blizzard buyout especially, that their word isn't worth a damn thing. So, that Steam machine's looking more appealing. I think that's the only thing that's really working for Microsoft right now, is this AI shortage has kept the Steam machine from coming out. I think in a world where, this AI bubble isn't existing and these companies aren't busy pilling shell games with their money, shifting money from one company to the other company just to power their data centers, I think in that alternate universe, the Steam machine is probably already out. and is selling gangbusters from people who are tired of the games. You know, because it's not like PlayStation's doing great either. Like, they keep shooting themselves in the foot with all sorts of stupid stuff, but not on the level of Microsoft. Not on the level of Xbox, which is just... I mean, I'm going to be blunt. Like, their whole last few years has been a shit show. Absolute shit show. Show us what you're working on. Show us the tech. Show us the new Xbox. Show us the next gen, controllers that are going to come with it, that have all the fancy bells and whistles. Show us that shit. You want us to stay? You want us to put the money in? Then show us. But until then, you're not getting a commitment from probably any of us to buy that next console. Especially when you keep shaking stuff up like this. And then just peppering us with, pleasantries to try and cover your butts. So, let me know what you think of the news. Like I said, I think at this point they're cooked. You know, I'm already adjusting my gaming habits, to kind of prepare for the inevitability that the Xbox just isn't going to freaking exist in a couple of years. You can talk about your next console all you want. Show it to me. Show it to us. We don't believe you. Period. We don't believe you, Xbox. We don't believe you, Microsoft. You need to actually show. Let me know what you think. Drop it in the comments. Like the video, all that good stuff. Make sure you subscribe. And I'll see you in the next video.